Good evening and welcome to the 2025 Democratic primary debate for State Assembly in New Jersey's 32nd Legislative District. I'm Laura Jones, host of New Jersey Politics, and we are so glad to have you here. Joining me tonight on the panel are Joey Fox of the New Jersey Globe and Micah Rasmussen of the Rebovich Institute for New Jersey Politics at Rider University. Three slates that include 6 Democratic candidates are competing for 2 seats in the 32nd District, which includes Hoboken and parts of Jersey City. Those seats are currently held by Assemblywoman Jessica Ramirez and Assemblyman John Allen. Mr. Allen is retiring. Assemblywoman Jessica Ramirez and Jersey City Councilman Yousef Saleh are running on Jersey City Mayor Steve Phillips' slate. Jennie and Crystal Fonseca, who have the support of Hudson County Democratic Organization, and Hoboken Mayor Ravi Bhalla and Katie Brennan are running an independent ticket. Invitations were extended to all 6 candidates for tonight's debate. Crystal Fonseca and Jessica Ramirez were unable to attend. Now, we organized these debates at the last minute and don't want our audience to read too much into those who were not able to attend. Just a reminder, in-person early voting began today, and primary election day is a week from today on June 10th. For tonight's debate, candidates will be given a 1-minute time slot for opening statements. Our panelists will then ask a series of questions on local and state issues. Every candidate will get 45 seconds to answer each question and a 45-second follow-up question. Back and forth between the candidates will be at our discretion. There will be no closing statements. Now, we conducted a random draw prior to this debate to determine the order for this evening. Katie Brennan will deliver the first opening statement, followed by Jennie, then Ravi Bhalla, Yousef Saleh. So, Ms. Brennan, you have the opening statement. 1 minute to you.
Hi, I'm Katie Brennan, and I'm running to lower the cost of housing, reliable and accessible transit, and good, transparent government that works for you. And I know how to get things done because I've gotten things done. I'm an urban planner and have spent nearly 20 years at every level of government and passed dozens of laws. And now I'm asking you to send me to the Assembly to continue this work. I'm also a longtime community advocate. Well before I was running for office, I worked to ensure that folks could buy a home, seniors can age in place, renters are protected, end homelessness. We've got big problems, but they have policy solutions. The state matters now more than ever as the front line protection. We're all Democrats here, but I and Ravi are not beholden to any machines or fueled by super PACs, so we answer to no one but you. We need a fighter in this district and a fighter in Trenton, and tonight I hope to earn your vote. Thank you.
Thank you for your opening statement. Ms. Pooh, you are next.
Good evening. I'm Jennie, a 20-year Jersey City resident, Hoboken Public Library director, a PTA leader, and a longtime public school and community advocate. I'm running for the State Assembly because our communities, now more than ever, deserve bold, effective leadership that listens, includes, and delivers, just as I've had for years at the grassroots level. I have led one of New Jersey's most innovative public institutions. I've built the district's largest after-school enrichment program, and I've helped to pass statewide legislation to protect our freedoms. I know how to bring people together and to deliver results that matter. Now, as a potential first Chinese American legislator to serve in the New Jersey legislation, and the only librarian, I'm working to ensure that the voices of our working families, our immigrants, underserved communities are heard in Trenton. I will be a voice that fights for our values and our future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Bhalla, you are next.
Good evening. My name is Ravi Bhalla, and I am running for State Assembly because we need change. Our politics in Trenton is broken. The Democratic Party needs reform, and I've been there before. I currently serve as the mayor of the city of Hoboken, and the very reason I got involved in politics as a young attorney was because I saw what was wrong in our community back in 2009 and wanted to make a change. Decided to run for office, served in the city council for 8 years, the mayor's office for 8 years, and that's taught me that if good people get off the sidelines and get involved, we can make an impact. And that's what this election is really all about. It's about making an impact on the issues that people care about. Access to mass transit in this district, affordable housing, and make sure we resist the policies of President Trump and really have, as Katie said, fighters in Trenton who know how to get things done and really disrupt the system. That's why we're running, and that's why I hope to earn your vote.
Thank you very much. Mr. Saleh, you are next.
Hi, thank you, Laura, Joey, Micah, and David Wildstein, and all the assembly candidates here today, and all those watching at home. My name is Councilman Yousef Jamal Saleh. I'm the Ward D sitting council person in the city of Jersey City. I have been the councilman for the last 5 years. I became a councilman after the passing of the late Councilman Michael Youn, who died from coronavirus, April 6, 2020. I won a special election and a general election. I left my corporate career on Wall Street to do this. I'm the only council member never to miss a vote, never to miss a council meeting, one of 3 that actually shows up to budget hearings. I don't double dip and I don't hire family. I'm literally in this for you. And I'm running for the state assembly to continue to work on the things we've already done. We've passed pay transparency in the city of Jersey City, the first in the state. We passed right to counsel. We need a real fighter who's going to go down to Trenton. And I want to be your gladiator. I'm running with Jessica Ramirez. She's the current assemblywoman. She doesn't need on-the-job training. And Mayor Fulop, the original breaker of machines.
All right, we thank each and every one of you for your opening statement. We have a lot of questions to get to. Again, everybody's going to be able to answer all of the questions, 45 seconds each. Joey, you are up first with our first question.
Candidates for making the time to be here tonight. And I hope to get to a number of different policy matters tonight, but I do want to start on a political question, which is this battle for the 32nd district is taking place within a context of much broader political fights with the Hudson County Democratic Organization, with Steve Fulop, with progressive activists, with all kinds of things colliding here with the demise of the county organizational line ballot design system. So I just want to ask directly, I'm going to start with you on this one, Ms. Pooh. What do you believe the appropriate role for county parties, political leaders, party bosses is in the political system?
Sure. Thank you for that question, Joey. I bring a real grassroots voice to this race. I'm proud to have the support of the party, and most importantly, the support of friends and neighbors and longtime community people who weren't really involved beforehand, but through my work at the grassroots level are now more engaged. I think now you've referenced to the greater picture of the Democratic Party. And you're right, it's in turmoil because it's become much more divisive. And, you know, the common tactic of the enemy is to divide and conquer, and we can't afford that anytime. And I think it's disingenuous when I hear some of my opponents talk about the machine and the enemy, because really we have sitting elected officials, and I am a librarian and a PTA mom, truly trying to bring representative good government, someone with a record of serving to this race.
Mr. Bhalla, I'll go to you next.
Yeah, unlike Jennie, I for one would not be proud to be part of the Hudson County Democratic Organization. They are everything that's wrong with Democratic politics in the county of Hudson. Before the line was abolished, thanks to advocacy through people like myself and Katie Brennan, this was a selection, not an election. Party bosses picked assembly people, and they were presumed, because they had the county support and the line, to win, and no one else ran. Now you have an election, not a selection, a much more democratic system. And the party bosses, they're desperate. They want to retain control because they know that the candidates they pick will answer to them and not the people.
Mr. Saleh, to you.
Yeah, I think Mayor Fulop has had a very icy relationship with the county establishment, as you know. I think ultimately everybody here is an amazing candidate, and they're ultimately backed by someone. You know, whether it's the HCDO, whether it's James Solomon, whether it's Mayor Fulop, like everyone has their own vision about what they want to see for the 32nd Legislative District. I would contend that Mayor Fulop has had the most organic and authentic relationship in terms of opposing the machine and trying to bring about change in New Jersey. So
And Ms. Brennan, we'll end with you.
This is the first time in 100 years that we have the opportunity for a real democracy and a real election in Hudson County. It's always been unopposed, or even when it wasn't, the chances were so slim. And I had the opportunity to run with folks, but for me, it was really important, especially now advocating for the end of the line, that I'm beholden to nobody but the voter. And just because we've seen what happens when, if you try and buck the machine, then you will be replaced. And that is not how democracies should work, and it's not truly representative of the people. So for me, this is a new day.
All right, Micah Rasmussen is next with our next question for our panel.
Great. So thank you for being with us. Joey just asked about the role of the party in Hudson County. I'd like to ask you about the role of the party in Trenton. To some extent, you've all asserted your independence, yet you are running to become one of 80 members of a legislative body that requires 41 votes to get anything done. How do you plan to get along without going along in Trenton and within the Democratic caucus? And we'll start this question with Mr. Saleh.
Yeah, I appreciate that question because I've done that on the city council. So in order to pass right to council, we had to get everybody on board, and not everyone was there. So you have to develop relationships with people when you go down there. You have to know what their issues are. Like, my issue is school funding. I'm a product of the public school system, born and raised in Jersey City. I'm the only candidate in this race that actually attended the Jersey City public schools. And as you can see, they're in a very decrepit state and very sad state. So when you go down there, you have to develop relationships. You have to stand on principle. Where are your red lines? What hill are you going to die on? And that's what I've done on the city council to advance legislation. I'm literally in the job. So.
And how about you, Ms. Brennan?
I've done it. I've worked in Trenton and built bipartisan coalitions and North Jersey, Central Jersey, South Jersey. It cannot be this Hudson infighting, and because we've not been the better for it. And so to get anything done in Trenton, you have to be able to take on interest, but also work with folks across the spectrum, across the aisle. And I've done that over the course of my career, both in New Jersey and New York. And I know that when I get there, I won't be starting from square one, and have a lot of relationships that I've built over the years in public policy, and look forward to advancing all of the crucial policies we need.
Great. Mr. Bhalla?
Over my 8 years as the mayor of Hoboken, I've had council minorities, 2 to 7, majorities, and everything in between. The one thing I've learned is that good government is good politics. If you as a policymaker set forth something that advances the public interest, the politics usually takes care of itself. So it is very important to reach across the aisle, because Democrats do have a lot more in common than they have in opposition in relation to the Republican Party, for example. So when I get to Trenton, it's important, if elected, to stay true to your principles, but also make sure that you work with your Democratic colleagues to move this state forward.
Okay, Ms. Pooh.
Yes, thank you for this question. I have experience in this, and most recently, currently I'm the chair of the New Jersey Library Association's Public Policy Committee, and we worked very closely with a broad coalition of partners to advance statewide legislation banning book bans, a true issue that is really attacks the underpinnings of our democracy. And that was a very difficult, rancorous process that we had to reach across the aisles and also bring broad coalitions together from all kinds of groups to pass this historical legislation, only the 9th state in the country to do that. Now, that's something as a public servant and as an educator and a PTA leader I've done for years, working with disparate groups, finding common cause, making sure that we focus on the issues that matter most to people, not to politics.
Okay, we're going to move on to our next question. Joey, the floor is yours.
So the next topic that we want to touch on is one that I think is really important to the very public transit rich 32nd district. I mean, this is a district where any kind of gaps in funding or any infrastructural problems will hit your bus and train and other transit riding constituents especially hard. So what I want to know is, what actions do you think the state, and specifically the state legislature, should take? And I'm looking for sort of specific actions here in order to make New Jersey transit and PATH more reliable, more expansive, and just plain better. So Mayor Bhalla, we'll start with you.
Number one, make sure that you have the corporate business tax, 2.5% tax, as a reliable, consistent source of funding mass transit infrastructure, specifically New Jersey's transit, which has historically been underinvested in by the state of New Jersey. Number two, take that $11 billion waste of time and money with the expansion of the New Jersey Turnpike lanes and redirect it towards investment in working families who rely upon mass transit every single day. This is a matter of priorities. Mass transit is good for our environment, it's good for working families, and it's the way that most people in Hoboken and Jersey City get to and from work. So that's how we would tackle mass transit head on, by making those hard decisions.
I'll try spelling out the order now so you don't have to keep on hopping back to me. Ms. Pooh, then Ms. Brennan, then Mr. Saleh. Let's see if we can keep that order straight. Saleh, sorry.
Okay, great. Yes, definitely ensure that New Jersey Transit has statutorily dedicated recurring funding sources like our other mass transit agencies. Pass legislation to create an independent and autonomous customer advocate and rider advocacy commission that will hold New Jersey accountable when we have these issues with our delays and stacking, and force them to respond to rider concerns. Increasing bus service, and then addressing, so I take the bus all the time, addressing the bus stacking issues, one of them by making sure that New Jersey has modernized routes and more articulated buses, those are kind of accordion buses, to serve, as you said, our very densely populated community.
Ms. Brennan, you're next.
Yes, we need the corporate fund to dedicated transit. Yes, we need to get rid of the Turnpike expansion and move that funding, like Mayor Bhalla said. The NJ Transit Capital Fund has not been funded since the 1990s. Like Jennie said, yes, bus stacking and modernizing our systems. And how do we really do this? We need transparency. We need to restore our open public records, to have a real look under the hood at NJ Transit and the Port Authority. They're behemoths, but they are state entities. And us as legislators need to be holding them accountable. We also need to keep the congestion pricing and get that funding into the system that Governor Murphy unfortunately declined.
Mr. Saleh.
Well, I agree with a lot of what was said here. We need to get the corporate business tax reinstated. It was not allowed to be reinstated, and that's like as much money as NJ Transit needs. Turnpike expansion, you need to put the kibosh on that, and you need to build light rail extensions all across the state. I'd prefer Kennedy Boulevard. You need, in my previous life when I worked in corporate America, I was, doing anti-money laundering and compliance at a Fortune 100 company. You need KPIs, key performance indicators. You need to publish them. PATH told me in an internal meeting that, we are going to have 12-minute paths by the time FIFA comes around. We're going to have 1 million people in Hudson County and Jersey City. And it's be easy unless we get the advancements for transit ASAP.
Okay, Micah Rasmussen, you're next.
Sure. I have a follow-up on that Turnpike widening project. Steve Sweeney said in the final governor's debate that not completing this controversial Turnpike widening project through Jersey City will ultimately cost more in terms of fixing the old infrastructure. There are also additional concerns about bond covenants that Turnpike bondholders might not allow to be spent on New Jersey Transit projects. So I would ask, and we'll start with Ms. Pooh, are those two valid concerns, or should we plow ahead with canceling this project anyway?
As someone who lives in Jersey City and has for 20 years and seeing the congestion that's coming to our roads, I vociferously oppose the Turnpike widening project because that's not in the best interest of Jersey City. I understand, my husband's a structural engineer, and we understand that we need to address our aging infrastructure, but it can't be at the cost of our neighbors and our neighborhoods. And so what I say to that is really to echo some of my earlier points that were addressed actually by some of our opponents, is we need more funding for mass transit. That is what the 32nd District commuter needs more now than ever.
Ms. Brennan.
No, we need to cancel the project or significantly scale back. The Turnpike Authority's own report said that we could repair it for $250 million and that it would last us at least another 40 years. We'll figure out the bonds. If they're not transferable to NJ Transit, it's still in the best interest of Jersey City and Hoboken to cancel that project and pursue other avenues for mass transit, because it will cause congestion, asthma. It'll be bad for our communities, bad for pedestrians, and we cannot move forward with the project as planned.
Great. Mr. Saleh.
Yeah, this is a blatant fear mongering on part of Sweeney. This is what he's good at. And basically, this is just like a grab bag for all of his contractor friends. Let's say the quiet part out loud. Like first it was like a few billion, then it was 10 billion. Now it's 12 billion. Like every time you blink, the billions keep going up. And it's just like, this is all for his contractor buddies, the slush fund for all these people. They charge the government exorbitant prices, and then it funnels back somehow in the campaign coffers. All right. And it needs to be canceled, and we can't fall for this kind of nonsense.
Mr. Bhalla.
Bond covenants, really? Is that the excuse now to keep this project going? As Yousef has said correctly, this is to enrich contractor friends who, not for nothing, are funding the campaign of Crystal Fonseca and Jennie Pooh in not a couple $1,000s, but in hundreds of thousands of dollars, because they're going to make millions of dollars if it goes through. And Steve Sweeney is conflating repair with replace. As Katie said, we can repair the Newark Bay Bridge. Replacing it cost $5 billion. So this is really a matter of being smart and thoughtful about it, and also realizing that expansion in light of congestion pricing also just isn't needed anymore.
Ms. Pooh, did you want a rebuttal?
Yeah, thank you so much. I am proud, Crystal Fonseca and I, my running mate, who couldn't make it tonight, we are proud to have the support of labor. And it doesn't change my answer that we are both adamantly opposed to this project. As a regular user of transit, I take the bus, I take the light rail. Mass transit needs to be our priority.
Okay, thank you very much. We're going to move on to our next question. Joey, you're up.
Ms. Brennan, I'll start with you on this one. Your would-be colleagues in the state legislature have spent the last several years focusing pretty heavily on property tax-related programs like the Anchor program and like Stay NJ for seniors. You're seeking to represent a district, an urban district that is younger and more renter-heavy than most of the rest of the state. So I'm curious, do you think that the programs that the state legislature has been pushing for in the last 3 or so years have been the right ones? And what other types of property tax-related legislation would you seek to advocate for that you think is specifically tailored for this district?
We need to make sure that our seniors can stay and age in place. Stay New Jersey, unfortunately, is funding a lot of wealthy seniors and is not appropriately targeted to the people who need it most. And in the 32nd District, Yes, there are a lot of renters. There are also homeowners that, because of the school funding formula and because of some of the choices the city has made, property taxes have gone through the roof and they are being pushed out every single day. State New Jersey is creating a huge deficit hole in our budget and is not good policy. We need property tax related relief, but it needs to be smart and targeted to those who need it most.
Mr. Bhalla, you're up next.
Stay NJ is a program which is too broad. It doesn't, as Katie said, target people who actually need the property tax relief. You can have people who are seniors but multi-millionaires or even billionaires getting a break on their property taxes through this program. What sense does that make? Why don't we direct property tax relief, whether it's in the form of rebates, redoing the school funding formula, to the communities that actually need it? Urban municipalities, whether it's Jersey City, Camden, Patterson, Newark, are really getting the short end of the stick because our funding formula is so skewed against urban municipalities. In the Assembly, we'll work to change that.
Mr. Saleh?
Yeah, stay NJ is the math ain't mathin' on that, and we don't know where we're going to get that. I think it's well-intentioned but misguided, and we got to look at the real issue here in New Jersey, which is we have 560 municipalities, over 600 school districts. When you look at all of the municipalities, 90% of them have a population of 40,000 or less. There needs to be a consolidation of these school districts because 50% or more of those property taxes are going towards the school systems. There's a lot of redundancy, and we need to change the funding formula so that it's fairer, and it should be county-based, right? You shouldn't you send your kid to the town across, and it's like everyone's got their little Ubuntu stand here and little fiefdom in New Jersey.
Ms. Boo.
Sure. I mean, fact of the matter is the rent is too high. And so we do need to pass policies ultimately that support and bring about more units. We're talking about a supply and demand. New Jersey, statewide, we're short about 200,000 units. So we need to build more, provide more housing that's affordable. And more importantly, we need to put statewide uniform standard of what an unconscionable rent increase looks like. We need to ban algorithmic rent fixing software like RealPage and strengthen tenant protection. So we are definitely pro-anchor and to expand renter benefits. And real briefly, taxes are all tied in Jersey City specifically to the school funding formula, something that I've been fighting on the front lines as a PTA parent for years.
Micah, you have a follow-up on this one.
Yes, this is a federal deduction, obviously the SALT resolution. But I just wonder whether when you, in the opinion of the candidates, when you put SALT next to what you all have just said about anchor, is that sort of a double down? Does that underscore more of a need for something that's means tested, or is that a separate issue? And we'll start with Ms. Brennan.
People that make half $500,000 a year do not need that much of a property tax deduction. They don't. That money could be much better served to increasing our housing production supply, helping renters that are being priced out, and helping the seniors that are on fixed incomes. People that are 65 years old and still working and making $500,000 a year, they do not need that property tax reduction in the amount the Stay NJ is doing. It's a political giveaway. And I know that that's not popular, but I am willing to work with people in Trenton to make sure that we are fiscally responsible and helping people who need it most. So yes, I think SALT, this is a double down.
Okay. Mr. Bhalla.
Yeah, this is again a double down on SALT. We all want to restore that SALT deduction to the fullest extent, but again, it's a matter of priorities. Are the people who need the relief the most actually getting it? And what we're seeing, especially in Jersey City, enormous tax increases in the school tax levy because of legislation that's skewed to bias urban municipalities. And it's the, whether it's the anchor program or the SALT deduction, we need to make sure that these are all targeted to really be with a scalpel, and make sure that they help the people who actually need that property tax relief.
Okay, Mr. Saleh?
Yeah, 50% of Americans can't afford a $500 expense. And I don't think that, this legislation is going to help those individuals. And there's a lot of people living on the fringes that are struggling. I see it on my day-to-day as a council person, people that are homeless or near homelessness and threatened with eviction. And so, we need to address the school funding formula because that's the elephant in the room. It comprises 50% of most of these municipalities' taxes, property taxes. And you saw taxes increase in Jersey City by 40% because they cut over $400 million in our school district. So that needs to be fixed.
And finally, Ms. Pooh.
We are pro increasing the SALT deduction. As everyone here said, our property taxes are too high. And as a parent with kids in the public schools and a property owner, I've seen my school levy go up tremendously. I've also fought that fight on the local end. And, locally, we fought for a local tax that would, a local measure that would help close that gap. But we're also pro the income cap because, as many of us said here, the ultra wealthy don't need help. It's working families, it's seniors, it's people on fixed incomes that need the help the most.
Micah, back to you. You're up with your next question.
Okay. The Regional Plan Association estimates that in Jersey City alone, the housing shortage could grow to more than 30,000 units by 2032. It also estimates that 36,000 city residents with incomes below the median are currently cost burdened. This is despite 26,000 units added to the city's housing stock since 2010. So, since Jersey City has had a concerted effort, what must the state assembly and what must municipalities do to address this problem? We'll start this with Mr. Bhalla.
Well, I know what we need to do because I'm literally doing it right now as mayor of the city of Hoboken, fighting corporate landlords who are increasing rents to unconscionable levels, working with the attorney general who filed a lawsuit against RealPage, calling these corporate landlords a cartel that are engaging in price collusion using artificial intelligence to inflate the rent above market rents. We've taken them to court. We've issued them summonses when they're supposed to be under rent control. We put them under rent control. You've got to have strong leaders who are committed to this and who are willing to fight the good fight, not just in City Hall, but also in the halls of Trenton. I've done it in City Hall and I'm ready to do it in Trenton as well.
Mr. Saleh.
Yeah, we need to increase the tax credits and different programs for people to build. Okay, I agree with everything that Mayor Bhalla has said with regards to the rent setting algorithm, but I don't believe it addresses the actual shortage, because it only addresses a certain number of units. We need to build as many units as possible that are affordable with 30 to 50% AMI, and we need to incentivize that with tax credits, tax rebates, first-time home buyer programs. We need to ban private equity and hedge funds from buying 1 to 4 family homes. And yeah, that's the only way. We have to make sure the rest of New Jersey's building, and they're not. And that's causing a huge impact across the entire region. New York City, Philadelphia, South Jersey, Central Jersey. They're not building. We're the only ones doing it.
Ms. Pooh.
And we don't have enough family-size housing. Over 2/3 of our housing growth, and we see it in Jersey City and Hoboken, are studios and one-bedroom units. So, as Councilman Saleh said earlier, this is really a broadening metropolitan housing deficit caused by years of underbuilding. So we need to support at the state legislative level advocacy for policies that would boost supply. My focus is on really producing more housing around transit nodes, ensuring that we have different kinds of housing around mass transit, and making sure that our neighbors in the region build enough supply. This cannot be borne on just Jersey City and Hoboken alone.
And finally, Ms. Brennan.
I am an urban planner and am the only affordable housing expert in this race. And that is also why I do not take money from the folks who have fought rent control, because that is a huge issue. But yes, we also need to build. And how do we build? Jersey City and Hoboken are one big transit node. We are transit-oriented development. But how do we get more family units? You have to do things like single stair reform and tweaks that are in the weeds to make it less expensive to build, and then it'll be less expensive to buy. You can't sell a home for $300,000 if it takes $700,000 to build it. These are the kind of experienced in the weeds things that we need at the state level.
Okay, we're going to go over to Joey Fox with the next question. Joey.
I imagine if I were to do a thumbs up, thumbs down vote on Donald Trump in this debate, I would get mostly or entirely thumbs down. But I want to ask something specifically about how New Jersey interacts with the Trump administration, which is there's a dividing line among Democrats about the Immigrant Trust Act, which is a bill that would limit the state and local cooperation with, the Trump administration's immigration officials. Some Democrats in New Jersey say that it's a really important bill to get passed in order to protect the state's immigrant communities in places like Hudson County. Others say that it's not necessary given policies the state already has in place, and say that it would risk opening the state up to a specific lawsuit if it was codified into law. So I'm curious for the four of you, and I'll start with you, Mr. Saleh, where do you stand on this?
Yes, I'm actually on the Immigrant Affairs Committee in the city of Jersey City. I sponsored the resolution in favor of the Immigrant Trust Act. We should have passed it. Like, this is the problem with Democrats. They're all yellow-bellied, and they, when you're fighting a bully, you got to stand up to them, because if you don't, they're just going to keep punching you in the face. All right. And basically, Donald Trump is using this to terrorize our local communities. 40% of people in the state of New Jersey are immigrants or have an immigrant member of their family. So this is the problem with Democrats. We don't say it with our chest. And when we lead, when we start to say, hey, I support the Immigrant Trust Act, then people will start coming back to the Democratic Party. Until then, they're going to tell us to kick rocks.
Ms. Brennan, you're next.
Yes, pass the Immigrant Trust Act, and Democrats need to stop obeying Donald Trump in advance. We don't know what we're going to get in November, and so we need to be passing the Immigrant Trust Act, codifying Roe, and all manner of other things to actually stand up and protect the people of New Jersey. This is why experience matters, because yes, we are all Democrats here, and the state is controlled by Democrats. And what will it take to work with people across the state to bring these kinds of things across the finish line, whether it's this bill, whether it's the Liberty State Park Protection Act that's been sitting there for years. Things are stalled if you don't know how to work with our colleagues and really get things done.
Ms. Pooh.
As daughter of immigrants who came to this country, my husband's family were refugees who came from Vietnam, and my parents came from China. Immigrants are the lifeblood, the future of this community, of this country. So codifying the Immigrant Trust Act into statute is something that I would sponsor on day one, because this is essential for the future of our country. It actually goes beyond party policies. This is really the survival of this country. Without welcoming and making sure that we continue to welcome immigrants, not just for our labor force, for our communities, I don't know what the future of this country is. So that's absolutely essential. And it's something I would sponsor on day one.
And Mr. Bhalla.
What makes me different from other candidates is that with respect to the Immigrant Trust Act, which I would pass, of course, is that I've already done it. It was the first thing I did as the mayor of the city of Hoboken was issue a directive declaring Hoboken a fair and welcoming city. And just recently, Donald Trump sued me and the city of Hoboken and 4 other mayors in Jersey City, Newark, and Paterson for passing the functional equivalent of the Immigrant Trust Act in our localities. You know what we're doing? We're fighting back because it's wrong. So if anyone tells you that the Immigrant Trust Directive is sufficient, that will be flipped or repealed by a Republican Attorney General. We need to codify it. And if someone sues the state of New Jersey like they're suing Hoboken, we need to fight back, because when we fight back, we win.
Joey, you have the next question.
So under Governor Murphy's proposed 2026 budget, Jersey City, I think you guys have mentioned the school funding formula before. Jersey City is set to lose yet more millions in state education funding. This is part of a longer term trend that's due to a 2018 law that rejiggered the way that state education funding is apportioned out. So I assume that you all generally disapprove of reducing state funding for Jersey City schools, but if you were to get to the legislature, what specifically would you do to change that? And how would you do it in a way that doesn't end up just shifting the burden onto other school districts instead and constantly making it a rat race among different school districts? So Mayor Bhalla, we'll start with you.
Yeah, what I would do is work with my urban partners in the assembly, whether it's Camden or Paterson or Atlantic City or Trenton or Newark or Jersey City, and make sure that we have a coalition that fights for a reform of the 2018 S2 School Funding Reform Act to take away those biases against urban municipalities, to take away those weights against ESL learning communities, to take away those weights against communities that have disproportionate populations of special needs students, which in turn lowers the amount of aid disproportionately to these communities. So it's that coalition that we need to build in order to pass legislation that really is more equitable and make sure that we get our share.
Ms. Pooh.
Well, I think we're going to talk about school funding formula. This goes beyond even school funding formula, because we have 564 municipalities and 600 school districts, which is way too many for a small state like New Jersey. So what I would do is I would go a next step and call for a constitutional convention for consolidation to fight for Jersey City and Hoboken and shared municipal services, because we can't support this many school districts. And Jersey City and Hoboken, the funding formula has been weighted against us and hasn't taken in consideration the needs of our special students, special needs, new Americans, the multilingual services, and our aging infrastructure that we desperately need to invest in.
Ms. Brennan.
Yes, and to all of the above. I will never understand how our legislators haven't been screaming about this from the top of their lungs for the past few years, because it is a policy problem and has a policy solution. Yes, we need to fix everything that Mayor Bhalla said. And yes, we need to consolidate. And yes, it is driving people out of Jersey City and Hoboken. My own taxes went up 35-40% in the past few years. It is built for small suburban towns. It is disadvantaging our urban students, and it has to be priority number one, because school funding and the cost of living go hand in hand, and it's making it untenable to be in Jersey City.
Mr. Saleh.
Sorry. I thought that everyone got my bad. Mr. Saleh, you're up. I thought that everyone got my bad. Mr. Saleh, you're up.
Yeah, I was like, actually, this is my issue. I served as president at McNair Academic High School. I served as a student representative to the Board of Ed when we were under state control. I served as president at Rutgers, New Brunswick for all 5 campuses. I was the first democratically elected president, and president at Rutgers Law School. And when I was at Rutgers Law School, I studied under Professor Paul Trachtenberg, who put out a seminal white paper about educational apartheid in New Jersey. It not only exists, it persists. And so we do need to have consolidation. We do need to make sure that these districts they essentially are siloing out Black and brown folk, and they're cutting higher ed funding. And for every bed that they have in a college, like for a Black person, they have 3 beds in a prison cell for them. And the same thing with Hispanics, 2.7 beds for every bed in a college that they have 2.7 beds in a prison cell. So where our priorities are skewed here in New Jersey.
We have time for one more question. That's going to come from Joey.
So I want to ask a question that is existing in the state of hypotheticals, which I know that politicians don't always love. But let's say that you all, whichever of you ends up winning, get to the legislature and you know that one bill that you introduce and that you write and introduce will get passed by the legislature and signed into law. What is that one bill? I'll start with you, Ms. Pooh, and I will tell our timekeeper to not start the time until you actually start talking, because I know that you might need to think about it for a second. But what is the bill?
Oh, that's an easy one for me. To pass the Liberty State Park Protection Act. Protect our open spaces for our urban communities. I have been going to Liberty State Park with my family for years. I bike through Liberty State Park. It was a lifesaver for my kids and family during the pandemic when the schools and the whole world shut down. That would be the first act that I would pass, would be to protect Liberty State Park, ensure this urban oasis stays free and open for all of our families in Jersey City and Hoboken and Hudson County.
Mr. Bhalla.
My first priority would be to pass the Climate Superfund Act. As the mayor of the city of Hoboken, I am one of a collection of mayors across the country that have declared a climate emergency. This is an existential threat to the city of Hoboken as well as Jersey City, because if we don't act now, our future is at stake. This act would make fossil fuel companies pay into the reform of and the build out of Liberty State Park and also resiliency projects statewide. This has to be passed in order for the state of New Jersey to fund climate action, especially this time when cuts are happening in Washington to these very initiatives. So I would make sure I'd pass the Climate Superfund Act as a first and most important priority.
Ms. Brennan.
At the risk of being redundant, it would be the school funding formula. The school funding formula, because, as I said, it is intrinsically tied to the cost of living. And I think that if we can't fix that underlying issue for our kids and our families, and we can't fix that underlying issue, which is driving up the cost of property taxes and thereby rents in Jersey City and Hoboken, then it's a losing battle. That anything that we do to increase who goes under rent control, the cost of building, the unconscionable rents, the rent algorithms, everything that people have mentioned, that'll be all for naught if every single year we're getting double-digit increases that we won't be able to fight against.
And Mr. Saleh, you get the debate's last word.
I appreciate that. Well, I would love to change the school funding formula because I attended public school from Head Start all the way through law school. But for the risk of sounding repetitive, I'm going to say press trust. I'd like to take 2 cents out of every $100 from property taxes and put it in a trust, which would fund local press, similar to like PBS or NPR on the local level, because you see a lot of local news outlets going out of business. There'll be a print version and a digital version without a paywall. Advertisements will be allowed, but reporters would be able to earn residuals. Why is this important? Because of the fact that if the press dies, then democracy dies, and we need the press to hold all of us here accountable.
Well, that is going to wrap up our debate. I would like to thank all of you. Thank you so much for watching this evening's Democratic primary debate for the State Assembly in New Jersey's 32nd Legislative District. I'd like to thank all of our panelists. I'd like to thank, of course, our candidates, as well as On New Jersey, the New Jersey Globe, and the Rebovich Institute for New Jersey Politics at Rider University. Remember, early voting in person begins today. Election Day is on June 10th. We want you to stay with us as we continue our coverage of New Jersey's primary election. Next up, we're going to have a conversation with the candidates in the 39th District. I'm Laura Jones. Thanks so much for watching. Stay with us.